We need to see tangible results to be motivated to continue to progress.
At the end of the day, we are here to make people feel better. But I want truly feel better, like feel better because they've achieved something, feel better because they've achieved, not trying to spin a story to you that they feel better because they don't want to admit to themselves or to you that they're not doing what's needed to get them to the goal.
It brings it all back to what causes this motivation, what is discipline, what is with them being soft on people.
People often are too outcome driven and not process driven, which is a motivation thing in itself, right? But on the flip side, if you become so process driven that you're not actually forgotten the outcome, you're wasting your time. So motivation is a bit of a hot topic, especially within the fitness industry, right? Like every one of our clients wants it. Every person in the fitness industry demonizes it. You know, like there's no middle ground here. It's either motivation is shit and the worst thing in the world, or it's the most necessary part to make any goal happen. Where do you sit on the topic of motivation as a whole before we delve into specifics?
Well, it's almost an entire industry itself. It's almost an aisle of the self-help bookstore, motivation. It's severely misunderstood and very, very, very overused, especially from our side of the industry, unfortunately. I do wonder if the pharmaceutical part of the industry or the clinicians that deal with the severely morbidly obese, the ones where there has to be some sort of medical intervention, I wonder how often they use the term motivation. Or is it strictly further down the line where our part of the industry gets a hell of a lot more watered down and screws things up for virality and likes and things like that?
When you look at sort of people, we talk about the morbidly obese and people with health issues, but when you look at the research on people with life-threatening illnesses, heart diseases, cancers, diabetes, and the success rate of them taking their medication is slim and none, you start really like you start to unravel this concept of motivation in the sense of, if you having cancer and on death's door doesn't motivate you to take your medication, like, is motivation something to be relied upon?
So we can never rely on motivation. Let's dive in at the deep end. What's going to get you from a place of pain to a place of success, or even just progressing along the way, whatever it is, whether you reach the end goal or not? It's not motivation. Motivation comes from seeing the progress. You're not going to be motivated to start. If you don't value the result, you're never going to be motivated to chase it. So even though we might know of people that get that death sentence and they don't make any change, or they're doing something that they know is damaging for their health. They know, everyone who smokes knows that's damaging for their health. But they value that short-term pleasure, that feeling that it gives them, over something that could potentially happen years down the line, that they can't even comprehend that time frame. Same with someone who's severely overeating, eating takeaways every week, you know, ordering multiple items on the large meal deal from Domino's when they live at home on their own. They know this isn't good for them, but getting that moment, they value that short-term pleasure, that dopamine hit, whatever the hell it is, whatever the method is, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. It's your value system that's screwed, not necessarily your motivation, because motivation comes from later down the line, from seeing that progress, really.
I think you said it. He hit the nail on the head earlier on in terms of motivation being misunderstood. I think people confuse motivation with inspiration.
Yes.
And as you said, like, motivation comes, as you said, it's down the line. Inspiration comes from that moment of excitement. And while I also think that it's misunderstood in both ways, because people start to demonize inspiration, but inspiration gets people moving. It's like me shitting on a spin class because it's not going to grow my biceps, but it's like that spin class could have got that client in the door, and that spin class could, in 5 years, become your client. And I think people also misunderstand, because the alternative people say is discipline, right? Because everyone's read a copy of Extreme Ownership, and everyone all of a sudden thinks, you know, they are friendly, slightly overweight Steve, who's now just started his YouTube channel. All of a sudden, he thinks he's now Navy SEAL Jocko. talking about discipline. And do you know what? I generally would lump discipline. And I do think discipline is the answer, but I do think there's more to it. I think discipline can be lumped in the same category as calorie deficit and progressive overload. As soundbite coaches say to sound smart, you don't rely on motivation, you need discipline. Great. How do I get to the discipline?
Yeah. Exactly. It's just to hark back ever so slightly. What you said about inspiration is absolutely spot on. And this is part of the problem with the body positivity movement. Accept yourself as you currently are. That's taking inspiration out of the equation. That's saying you don't ever need to be inspired to do anything, to do something that's going to massively, positively benefit your health and impact your life. You could just stay as you are. You're probably all right. I mean, that's not the case. My favourite thing about discipline, and I sway both sides on this one, right? I'm bi when it comes to discipline, because I believe there is something, there is consistency. You have to sometimes just put your emotional response at that moment in time on the back seat and do what needs to be done, which you could argue is some sort of discipline. But Poliquin's The Myth of Discipline, for me, was like a jaw-dropping moment in my own self-development. So this was on, I think he wrote articles about it before. It wasn't in his book. And if you want to look it up, he was on London Real, where he explains it a little bit deeper as well. The myth of discipline is it's not discipline. It's, again, you're choosing what you love. And you need to reframe how you say things as well. Whether you choose the smarter option from a place of strength, or whether you choose not to go for that smarter option from a place of weakness. The example being going, oh, I can't eat carbs. Flipping it around to, I don't eat carbs, because of what that's going to do for him later down the line. Obviously, Poliquin, didn't want you eating too many carbs. What you earning them, which some would say is, a form of discipline. But who knows?
I think that's a really, really good point, though, in terms of people's language, because I do think people's language do, like, it's going in now. We're trying to unravel the layers of how people actually get discipline. And there's a few things that I think of here, but I think going on to your point of sort of like the language we use kind of stops us before we succeed. It's how many people do you say, and you see it in PT sessions all the time, right? They say, I can't do that when they're on a leg press or pendulum squat. And the reps haven't begun to slow down. Like, well, tell me what you're doing right now. Or one of the things I'm very, very, very on top of in terms of calling out with people is when someone says to me, I'll try. And I'm going, well, you already got half a foot in, half foot out. Like, you're never doing that. So I always return the question with, what would I have to do to turn that try into I will? Oof. And it's up to them. They can tell me what it is. But what is it that's the barrier to just making this is something I'm doing? Because action leads to everything. It's like there's this almost chicken and the egg conversation when it comes to like personal development. Can you think your way? Do you think your way into action, or do you act your way into thinking? Like, can you change the body with the mind, or you change the mind with the body?
Yeah.
And it can't really answer that question, right? But generally, Andrew Huberman always talks about, like, you have to do something actionable. You have to do something with the body that will change the mind. And I think when it comes for health, I think that's the case, right? No one wants to track the food when they've not done it. No one wants to go to the gym when they've not done it. But when you've done it enough, it's like you don't see the rewards until 3-4 weeks down the line. So you just kind of got to get it done. Every diet sucks when you're used to eating takeout all the time. Everything is more effort. So if the fact that it's effort is the thing stopping you, you're never going to get started. Everything is hard in the gym if your normal after work ritual is sitting down and watching the perfect match on Netflix. And I would say do both, because that is a surprisingly awfully good show.
Balance.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're right. I think the language does stop people. But in your experience, how do people change that? Because that's such a subconscious thing, really, in a way. You notice your language once you've done the negative self-talk, not after, not before.
Yeah, it's all about awareness. We automatically link through whatever reason. Maybe it's Hollywood, maybe it's just our previously stoic British culture. I don't know, but we used to link discipline with hardship. You'd think of what's an example of discipline, where it's mate in the military getting up at 4 a.m. doing 100 push-ups naked out in the rain while someone screams at him and whips him with a hose or something like that. I don't know. But the issue is how many people have said in their life, especially when it comes to their diet or their training, I just need a little bit more discipline. Or it's not really you need a bit more discipline, because again, how do you quantify that? How can you quantify you're being disciplined? Or are you just being consistent? Or are you starting to value what you need to do? Or are you starting to enjoy the process? Or is it a knock-on effect from something else that you're doing? If you think, I've got the point I was going to make now, but it was linked to what you just said.
Why are you remembering that point? Why you remember that point, talking about discipline? I can hear right now tapping in the living room across from me. And this is a part, and we'll go into this later, of how you create discipline. This is Ellie's Lent. For Lent, she's going to do 30 minutes of exercise a day. And I think she's doing a dance class on the TV, literally, as we talk about. Speaking about discipline, just getting up and doing something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly it. So if you think, right, someone who's enjoyed their previous diet of however many decades potentially, that has been, shitty, nutritionless breakfast, but high in calories, takeaways in the evening, loads and loads of alcohol at the weekend, and that's been consistent, and that's what they've enjoyed until they realise that maybe they're in a place of bad health or even a place of pain. It's going to take them a little while to become disciplined, because not everyone can just make that switch on day one. There are rare creatures, and we've trained them, but not everyone's going to do that. I couldn't necessarily do that, depending on what the goal is as well. But even if they just did the minimum effective dose, so let's say, right, we've got 20 years of bad dieting to unravel, but we know that you enjoy exercise, or we know we can create a form of exercise that you enjoy. So it doesn't mean that you have to go to the gym and do a HIIT class. Your missus is in the other room doing a dance class. There's nothing bad about that in the slightest. She's going to enjoy that. Doesn't even have to think about diet. It's going to have massive impact on her health, cardiovascularly especially. And then that's going to have knock-on. The more you do that, that's going to have more knock-on effect because of the biological changes, the physiological changes you're going to experience, which can lead to those psychological changes. Suddenly, if your blood's pumping better and you're getting more oxygen to the brain and hormones are a little bit more stable, you might not want to be reaching for the things you're normally craving. And suddenly, again, is that discipline, or is that just a knock-on effect from doing something you enjoy and you value that has net positive gain for your overall health, for your mental health as well? But it's all an awareness thing, right? How many people think the picture of getting in shape is, right, it's fish and a rice cake. Maybe not even a rice cake if we follow Poliquin. Maybe it's just fish and greens. And you have to go to the gym and you have to suffer. I wouldn't say at any point, coming from my angle, can I really say that in my training I suffered? Because I love training. I made it hurt. I took it to failure. I couldn't walk for days. I'd scream in searing pain from lactate built up in every single muscle in my body. I wouldn't call it suffering, because I enjoy it and it's for the greater good. But I forget who said it. Maybe it was Andrew Tracy. Maybe it was the Jim Jones guys. Maybe it was Chris Williamson. Maybe it's someone more famous than that you're going to tell me who it is in a second. But it was someone who said you got to choose your suffering. So it
was Chris Williamson, but it wasn't Chris Williamson. It was on Modern Wisdom, and it was. Oh, I will find it and tell you later. It was a British guy. It's often on talk radio quite a lot.
Yeah, yes. The idea of choosing your suffering, and I love that. I love that, because again, we can't automatically assign discipline to meaning hardship, right? I think ownership is a great use of language. Taking ownership, recognizing the position you're in and how you've got there. Okay, maybe with assistance of, marketing and the availability of poor quality foods and things like that.
Environment, friends, family.
Peer group, the whole shebang, right? Boris Johnson telling you that all you need to do is eat less cheese. Whatever the hell it is. Whatever happened to the government's app? That never came out, did it? Jesus.
No.
So that's a topic for another day. But ownership is recognizing that you're in this position and you are the person with the most power to change it. It might also mean finding assistance, because, you didn't get to this position on your own. You don't have to get out of this position on your own. So I prefer ownership rather than, if we were to assign a term in terms of what you need to do to get yourself out of a position of pain and bad health and move forward, for me, ownership is so much more powerful than discipline. Because ownership doesn't necessarily mean hardship either. Even if I haven't read Jocko's book. I haven't. I've listened to a few podcasts of his, a few sound bites and things like that. But maybe that's another word that's being warped already. I don't know.
Exactly what I was about to go on to. I think it is. I think discipline's become this sexy term where now it's almost like if I have discipline, I'm going to do all the things I need to do. And I think people get overwhelmed by it because it's like if they've got a busy life or something comes on or something comes out of the norm, they've got to have this discipline to do this unrealistic task where discipline often isn't. It's just getting stuff done that's subpar. The way I always look at it is like, I don't know, this is quite a depressing analogy, but I think it's true, right? If you count back in your life to how many days you remember where you felt like you hit rock bottom, it's probably less than one hand, and if you're unlucky, less than two. If you now say about the days that you said that were the best days of your life, your wedding, graduation, university years, the hottest person you ever slept with, whatever you consider these valuable moments in your life, it's probably less than two hands. 90% of the days we have in our lives are mid. They're fine. Some are better than others. They're average. And I think the more you can do something, if you can act, if you can keep pushing forward on the days that are mid, you have more opportunity to have the days that are good. So like, if I act and it's not going to be the greatest session, it's probably going to feel a bit rubbish. I'm going to be a bit tired. I don't want to do it. I'm probably going to cut it short. I'm probably going to like half-ass a couple of reps and all that sort of stuff. But if I do more of them, eventually I have that amazing workout that if I never turned up, I wouldn't have had. And we get more and more of those, and over time we chip away. Most physiques aren't built by the screaming, this is Sparta workouts. They are built by a bunch of average workouts with a few fantastic ones sprinkled in.
Yeah.
And I think that brings me on to the next point. We talked about a lot of words here. We've talked about inspiration. We've talked about motivation. We've talked about discipline. I'm going to throw another one in there that I think that's important that people really should be striving for, and that's momentum. Like if you can just act long enough of doing something like slightly uncomfortable, not horrendous, but slightly uncomfortable to the point where you get enough momentum that all of a sudden you can see the value in what you're doing and it starts to pick up steam, it'll feel easier. Because I think that sometimes people, what they try and do to avoid their scope of, sort of about picking your sacrifice, their scope of how big sacrifices are is warped. I know people that, because they don't want to spend 5 minutes a day tracking their food, will decide to then just go, well, it's just easier just to not eat any of the food that I love. I'm like, on the sacrifice scale, your way of doing this is much, much harder.
Yeah.
Like you said, I'm never going to eat a carb again. Then you crash and burn because I don't want to eat a carb again. I'm like, how about you just take 5 minutes to track your food and include all the foods you like?
Yeah.
And that's too much effort. And it's this warped sensation that people don't understand of like how easy some of this stuff is that I think stops people getting started.
Yeah, massively so. And once you get momentum breeds motivation, right? As we've already said, momentum comes later down the line, almost alongside a sense of confidence potentially as well. And the language is important, but you've got to use the language that works for you. And if that language has a negative connotation to it or assigns any sort of hardship, then you're not going to see the enjoyable side of what you're doing. You're always going to link it to something negative. So momentum is really the key thing, because that's going to show you that what you're doing works, which is important. You're then going to be more motivated, inspired, confident, whatever it is, to keep going and do that, to see more progress, to get you towards that goal. But it all starts from a place of just doing, whether it's hard or easy in the beginning. And if you're coached correctly, it can be a hell of a lot easier. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Or it can be simpler. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. This is the more... Take the calorie counting, for example. How many people are confused by that? How many people don't know how to use certain apps like MyFitnessPal? How many people have just heard a million sound bites now that calories don't matter and you shouldn't count them and you're just going to gain the weight back and all this stuff? There's already hurdles in the way for a process that you and I and multiple other trainers and multiple clients who have done it successfully know that once you get going with it, it's not that hard. It's just a matter of reminding yourself to do it, making allowances for when you can't do it, but we know it works, and we know it's certainly not a sacrifice, right? But like you said, there's ways to do it that makes it a hell of a lot harder if you want to add some sort of sacrifice to it. You don't have to create this false sense of nobility like you're doing something that's going to save the fucking world or something by you losing weight, that you're going to stand on top of the mountain and everyone's going to go, oh my God. It's like, no, it's not that.
You would be
your
surprised.
Health.
Yeah, you'd be surprised with some of the things that I hear these days. And we've said this in another podcast that like the barrier to entry of challenge and discomfort is less than ever. I had a client today tell me that he found that the act of shaking a protein shaker was too much effort, and that's why he doesn't drink them.
Come on,
right? And in this is the thing. It's like at some point you've just got to check yourself and just go like, who is the person that who want to be? And I always bring this back to analogy of what you said this earlier on about connecting with your why, right? I said to this client today, I went, is everything you do at your job easy? Is it everything like super efficient, super fine? And he goes, no. He goes, but do you do it? He goes, yeah. He goes, why? He goes, well, I want to pay the bills. I'm like, well, if you associated your health in the same level of priority, you would get it done, right? I also talked about like, I said, what's your favorite food? I said, if I was going to take you for dinner and I'd buy you anything, what would you buy? He goes, sushi. Okay, cool. What did you have for dinner yesterday? Had a piece of beef. I went, was that piece of beef as good as the sushi that you had? And they're like, no. I'm like, but you ate it. Yes. Why? Because it was fine. It didn't like, well, why all of a sudden when I suggest that with a diet, all of a sudden the whole connotation changes. Like, same thing. It's mid, right? Some meals, wedding anniversary meal, best ever. Let's go out for dinner. Some meals, Wednesday between meetings, let's just get through the day. And I think sometimes the problem with discipline is that some people think it has to be something fantastic. So discipline is just doing something. It's just acting. It doesn't need to be like unbelievable. Bringing this home, being more specific, tell me about a time in your life where you've lost motivation to train. Has that ever happened?
It has happened. It's probably happened multiple times, right? Normally around an injury. Because then again, if I don't, like you say, check myself, sometimes I could assign that what I was doing was just geared towards creating that injury. When I have to recognize that these things could just happen out of nowhere. And yeah, maybe it's something I missed, and maybe it's a little red flag going off saying you need to focus a bit more on this type of exercise or this type of strengthening or whatever the hell it is. So normally around an injury, rarely around an illness. When I'm ill, I get antsy I want to train. And then when I feel better, even if the first couple of sessions might be a bit dodgy, I'm normally pretty motivated there. But obviously the biggest one being when life stress was completely overwhelming, and severe depression had crept in, the motivation to train well wasn't there. But thank God I had already done the work for X amount of years beforehand and already had it in as a habit. And my environment kind of pushed for it, working alongside trainers that love training. We kind of expected a little bit to look the part and to be seen training, and knowing that it probably would have helped my mental health as well anyway. It made it easier to get back on that wagon, but there were still moments where last thing I want to do is get changed and get under a barbell. Even some people, it was lockdown, right? I didn't lose motivation during lockdown because I had clients that were I think if you were a trainer, especially in the UK, if you're a trainer in the UK and you lost motivation to train during lockdown, I think you were doing your clients a disservice. I'm just going to put it out there. Because, okay, we had the lockdown, but you're still in a pretty well-off country where you know how to train. You didn't have police knocking down your door or drones flying onto your fucking balcony to check what you're doing, like other parts of the world. It wasn't.
I wasn't far off.
You weren't far off. It wasn't like it could have been worse, right? It could have been a lot worse. So I didn't lose motivation to train the lockdown, but I know a lot of people that did because the environment has changed. suddenly you're not moving as much. Suddenly you're locked in your four walls and there's doom and gloom everywhere. Take pandemics and lockdowns out of the equation. Pretend those things never even happened. If you're losing motivation, it's probably a sign that your environment's changed in some way, shape, or form, and you need to take a little deeper look at what's actually happened that's causing this lack of motivation. Because you don't choose to be motivated and you just do. Likewise, you don't choose to not be motivated and not do. Something else is going on there.
I think I have a very, very confident answer in terms of why I think a lot of coaches and a lot of clients or people that train lost motivation to train during lockdown. And it was like, especially people that come from gyms, right? So you've come from big fancy gyms and you've got all the machinery and all the equipment to build tissue. And then you end up doing home workouts. And what you try and do is emulate home workouts and try and make them as good as the gym sessions without the load, without everything else. I'm like, if you have no potential for progress, what on earth is going to motivate you to train? So like, I fell into that trap a little bit in the first lockdown, and I was much more motivated in the second one to train. For me, because I was like, right, I can't make progress because I don't have enough load to make true progress in terms of hypertrophy or strength. But what stimulus, what mode of training could I make progress on? Could I work on some mobility? Could I work on conditioning? You know, like, what is it that I don't have any restrictions on that I can make absolute progress on? And I think if more people thought outside the box like that, you have less people less motivated to train. Because if you, like with hypertrophy, let's put load on the bar. If I can't put load on the bar, what am I doing? Could I work on range of motion? Could I go for a run? And like stuff that isn't restricted. Because VO2 max is not restricted during a lockdown.
No.
You know, mobility training is not really that restricted during a lockdown. So you can get a lot from that. Do you think, I'll go into my story with this in a second, but it was something I was thinking when you were talking about this, about coaches and working in an environment. Do you think sometimes coaches' marketing actually makes it harder for their clients to stay motivated because they've sold them a false reality? And here's my example. How many Instagram bios for online coaches say this? I help busy professionals, because who isn't busy and who isn't a professional? So you don't help homeless people. I help busy professionals lose weight without restricting any of the foods they love. How many people say that in their bio? And I always think, well, how the fuck are you going to do that? No, without giving up the foods you love. Okay. But without restricting? So you're saying that you can get them in shape whilst they're doing the same food quantity of the same foods that they're doing now? When they buy into your program and realize that physically cannot be true, or just they're not going to get results, one of the two, both of those end to a motivation crash.
Massively. We don't realize how deep this marketing rabbit hole everyone's down on the certain way to market, which is just doing what everyone else is doing at the same time, isn't actually helping people. The like you say, the ones that are saying, here's how you lose weight while restricting the foods you love. Fuck me. If someone says that, I can guarantee you, just jump on a call with them and say, ask, can I still have pizza? Can I still have burgers? And if they say yeah, but then they give you a meal plan that involves pizzas made out of wraps, tortilla wraps, and burgers where you're not allowed to bun, then you've just highlighted they were lying to you in their marketing, right? It's a cool soundbite that sounds good. So yes, okay, you can still make progress whilst including things that you love with an awareness of managed expectations, what that could potentially do to your progress. But again, the busy professionals are teaching busy professionals how to do things that the single mum of 3 kids who works in the evening needs to hear. The optimal bros are going completely over the heads of the people that have never even set foot in a gym. It's just creating more confusion, more
I don't think it's the optimal bros. I don't just think it's the optimal bros. Sorry to cut you off, but I don't think it's the optimal bros. I think it's the beginner bros.
You're right. It's not
because let's break into that soundbite, right? Without restricting the foods you love, or including the foods you love, right? For that to happen, and this is a pet hate of mine, and I'm for macro tracking, but it's also the crowd of people. 90% of the people that say meal plans don't teach you anything are also, and I promise you this, by the way, guys, if people listen to this, and coach, if you'll do this, check yourself, right? The people that say meal plans don't teach you anything, let's start with you're wrong, because it teaches you structure, it teaches you meal timing, it teaches you routine, it teaches you simplicity, it teaches you consistency. But let's put that aside. The people that say meal plans don't teach you anything are the exact same people that go into mentorship groups and saying they cannot be bothered to write a meal plan for their clients. It is laziness. It is that they just don't want to take the time to do it. So you got these people coming in who are overweight, stressed out mother of three, coming into the program because she doesn't want to take away the food she loves. And all you're doing is giving her a set of numbers without any education and saying, work it out. It is the equivalent of someone trying to learn Spanish by sending them to Spain and hope and just talk to people and you'll pick it up. You'll be so overwhelmed. And again, so they're either lying to you or they're not lying to you. You are sink or swim in the deep end.
100%. It's the ones that say meal plans don't work are probably ones that could not write a meal plan, let alone a meal plan that would work for the specific purpose you would write a meal plan for. But yet they're also the people that do, here's what I eat in a day videos. Well, trying to give you kind of fucking meal plan, really, based on what you're eating. So that's what the meal plan would turn into if they did do one. It would be what they eat in the day, because they don't know how to work out a meal plan, because they're not willing, they're not invested to go deeper. They're not disciplined, they're not motivated to go deeper into what that particular client needs. Because again, they've just got caught in the social media hamster wheel of sound bites and motivational tips and butchered quotes from Atomic Habits and Extreme Ownership. And Paul Mort as well. I see a lot of stuff copied from Paul Mort. Being in his coaching program, the amount of stuff I see that's just, he said that. Exactly. Some people don't even bother changing the words, let alone, putting it into their own voice or, applying it first. That would help. But we don't want this to be another state of the industry rant, but it just shows that the discipline and motivation thing is not just limited to people looking to lose weight. It's people later down the line that maybe haven't seen the progress that they wanted to see, but they know they want to train people. They know they want to be a PT or whatever the hell it is. I do wonder if this happens in other industries. It really, really, like you could look at finances and go, right, people are spending too much and they're not saving for the future. And maybe they're not even earning enough. They're just ticking along on the bare minimum and they're in a place of pain. I do wonder then, is it the same as the fitness industry? Have we got people going, you need to be more disciplined. You don't want it enough. You need to track your ingoings and outgoings. And there's another part of the industry going, no, that doesn't work. And I don't know. Obviously, I'm not too far.
I also wonder if there's in the fit again, without making this a state of the industry rant, but like using that analogy, I wonder in other industries, like so many other industries, there is a standard to entry. Right? So if you want a job, even if there isn't a standard of qualification, there is a standard to, if I want a job in finance, right, I go to an interview and I find out whether I'm good enough to get this job. And the fitness industry seems to be a lot of people that have not made it yet. Now, no one's made it on day one. Fake it till you make it. Has to be done. Like you are an imposter until you prove yourself. I totally agree. And I'm not saying that you should be dick, skin, lean or shredded, but there's a lot of people that become PTs because they couldn't get in shape themselves. They've struggled with their own weight and they realize they quite like the pursuit of it. But they've never become the expert. They've never helped anyone else. They're still the fumbling client, but now they've made an Instagram account to document their journey and trying to help other people out, but they've never done it with themselves or anybody else.
Yeah. And
I wonder if that happens. If there's any other industries where that happens, like the person who's broke, but they like learning about money, but they're totally broke, and they've not helped anyone else not be broke. They are broke. Their friends are broke. Everyone is broke around them, but they're offering services to help you not be broke. But we get this, and this is the reason why people are confused. And I think that's why motivation is harder, because you're bombarded with online coaches who have never been anywhere close to being where you want to be, or haven't had a client that's been there. And there are a lot of people that do, by the way. The standard in the industry is getting better. But this is also the industry where those good people aren't always at the top of the market where they should be.
You got to think, what if, let's say someone flipped the switch and social media doesn't exist anymore. Or let's say something happened and views and likes, etc., for the fitness industry just tanked. A lot of people would not be PTs anymore.
Yeah.
Because there are people that, okay, you can make the argument, does social media work for building a business? Well, yeah, if you do it right, if you do it the right way. But some people out there, they don't really seem to care if it gets some clients or not, as long as they're becoming viral, as long as they're getting their views and their likes and their comments. Doesn't matter if they're getting clients on the other side of it, which to me is just a fucking waste of time. If it's not actually helping my business, what am I doing it for? But there's probably been moments where I've just posted stuff for a bit of attention. Of course, I think everyone's done it.
Of course.
The issue is now we want to be sources of inspiration. Okay, we're much likely to inspire someone into action or persuade someone into action than we are to manipulate or anything else, right? As the fitness industry strictly. So if the results we're getting on ourselves aren't that great, is it really inspiring? Is it going to inspire a community, a tribe? Or is the handful of clients you've got from your local gym just people that like the idea of having a PT and you were the first one to have a conversation with them? I hate to be that harsh, but that's the nature of the beast, right? That just is what it is. Just because you have some clients doesn't mean you're fucking amazing. And I put myself in that bracket as well, right? But I know what I've done. I know what my clients have done. And it's life-changing. It's none of the results my clients have got would you class as mediocre. And that's not to shit on anyone who just lost a few pounds. There's a difference between a life-changing amount of weight that creates physiological change inside your body versus someone who's lost a bit of bloating, really.
Do you think that's why people lose, like, that, struggle with that I'm going to use the term motivation, but even to create discipline is because coaches and clients don't necessarily know what a result is. Like, we were very lucky for all the faults of where we used to work. Right, one of the things that was very, very good is the standards. The standards sets were incredible, and we had a tall order for what was considered a result. So now we probably have an expectation we know what's possible. As you said, it's life changing. You've seen what it is with your clients. Now, how many people I see it with coaches all the time, where they'll be really excited and they'll show me a result. I'll be like, 12 weeks of taking a step back and change the sports bra. And I don't want to sound harsh, but like, you're selling yourself short and you're selling your client short. And because of that, I bet that filters into every bit of communication that you have with the client. Every time that you have a difficult conversation with that client, every time you want to push in their food pictures to make them a little bit more dialed in, every time you want to call them and make them a bit more accountable, because you don't know what's possible, because it's such a small scale, you're just sort of like, oh, it's okay. Yeah, it's hard, but maybe we'll just cut the deficit a bit this week and we'll push again next week if you want. Like no, fucking go for it. And this is why I think a lot, from a coach's point of view, this is where inspiration's lost, because you don't feel that the trainer's in it with them.
We need to see tangible results to be motivated to continue to progress. One of the things, and I get it, it's just part of the machine. A lot of coaches will put screenshots of their clients' 3 wins that they say that week. And I'm all for doing that. People should be doing that every fucking day. But the amount of times I'm reading them and all the client has said, well, I journaled every day this week and I feel pretty good. And so no actual weight loss this week, no? Because that should be top of your 3 fucking wins for the week. No actual weight loss. Oh, same next week, no actual weight loss. What are you doing with that client? Why isn't your client losing weight? Like, okay,
I had a client. I had a client.
Journaled and their mindset's good, but fucking PT.
I had a client that literally was like that. She struggled like with some of the mental health and stress, and she used to come in and I'd be like, "Hey, how's it going?" He goes, "So I got up early and I started my essay." I'm like, oh, that's awesome, fantastic. He goes, "And how was your diet?" And I got most of my essay done, and then I went and got ahead on the start of the next one. Fantastic! And how was your diet? And then after that, I decided to listen to a podcast. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's really good. And how was your diet? And it kept going for 4 or 5 times. So when I was doing my essay, I needed 3 pints of cider and a burger. And I'm like, people can kid themselves into progress. And don't get me wrong. At the end of the day, we are here to make people feel better. Like, abs don't make people happier. Yes, we are there to make people feel better. But I want truly feel better. Like, feel better because they've achieved something, feel better because they've achieved, not trying to spin a story to you that they feel better because they don't want to admit to themselves or to you that they're not doing what's needed to get them to the goal. So I want objectivity. So here is where you are this week. This is where I want you to be next week. I do not care how you get there, but the goal is to get there. I can't measure feel. I can't measure energy. I'm happy that you feel more energetic, but that doesn't change from the fact that you came here for this reason and we're not getting this reason. And if you in 10 weeks still feel a bit more energetic, are you going to be happy? Because I would argue no. I sound harsh, but yeah. But coaches let it off, and then the client goes 20 weeks with not a single bit of weight loss because, it's fine because they feel good. Well, they didn't feel bad when they came in the door.
It brings it all back to what causes this motivation. What is discipline? What is with them being soft on people? Like if your diet was shit that week, then you weren't that disciplined, and if your coach lets you off because you journaled. Or you did your fucking cold shower, you tried a cold shower that week, or whatever the fuck it is, whatever mindset thing that they want to do, because they're chasing shiny objects now. They would tell their clients not to chase shiny objects and jump diet, but they're not being a PT anymore. They're trying to be a fucking life coach or something like that. That's chasing shiny objects. They need a bit more discipline themselves as well. But there's nothing tangible to track there apart from seeing, how would you put it? Apart from seeing consistency of numbers where there's no progression. So if I were to journal every single day for 30 days, call successful month in my journaling, how do I progress on that? I can't really. I can continue to do the same. I can get another 30 days in. But again, how do I progress from that? Well, I can't, but it gives me benefits, right? But there's no tangible progression from it. I can't set a goal with my journaling apart from to do it.
Well, journaling surely is no one sets up a journaling habit because they want to journal. No. They set up a journaling habit because they want something else in their life, right? Yeah. I journal because I want to improve my mental health or improve my physical health or do this or whatever, right? So if the act of journaling becomes the reward and it doesn't actually get you to the reason why you started journaling in the first place, is journaling a waste of time? It's like stretching and you don't improve any range of motion. Are you there? Are you stretching for the sake of stretching? You're stretching to achieve more range of motion at a joint. We get so. I'm all for bringing living for the process. People often are too outcome driven and not process driven, which is a motivation thing in itself, True. Right? True. But on the flip side, if you become so process driven that you're not actually forgotten the outcome, you're wasting your time.
True, absolutely true. And that's it. Is how can you be? So the idea of motivation and discipline, how can you actually make that work for you? Well, first, it comes down to, again, what do you value? Is your life, your environment, and your decisions currently aligned with your values? And if not, that's why you're in a place of pain. So therefore, we need to do 2 things. We need to make a commitment to change your environment, and we need to set a goal, an outcome to work towards. That's the first step. Then we put that goal aside a little bit. We don't lose sight of it, but we put it aside because now you have to be focused on the process and you have to recognize the value of it and what it's going to do for you. And you have to gain awareness around what you're doing and create a bit of an education and start to notice how you feel from doing it as well. That then becomes your focus for the next week, the next 2 weeks, the next 3 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, whilst you've still got that goal in mind. We look at your progress. If there's no progress, then there's tweaks to be made. There's leveling up of your education. This is where great coaching comes in hand, of course. all these different things. There's so many moments where you can slip. And the slips come from you losing sight of the goal, you losing sight of the process, or I don't want to say you're not committed enough, but you don't see how it aligns with the values of the original goal that you set. It's all one massive, massive clusterfuck of things to think about, but you can't think about all of them. And the moment you think about all of them, you get overwhelmed. You can't manage your thoughts and your emotions, and you quit. So if we just focus on that one thing at a time, that's where you're likely to see the most progress. You also have to recognize that if you've got 20 years of making shit decisions, you're not going to start making great decisions overnight. There are some people that have made phenomenal progress in 12 weeks, 24 weeks, under a year, whatever the hell it is. And that's because they did the things necessary. They weren't lucky. They weren't genetic freaks. They did the things necessary at a much, much higher level of adherence and consistency. Probably because they were coached by a decent coach at the same time. But if you think that the motivation is going to come from looking at your goal and trying to enjoy the process as much as you can, and the minute you start looking at everything else that's going on around you, that's going to be fucking tough. That's going to be tough for anyone to try and control their emotions and their thoughts around it. And again, I want to try and link it back to have you seen the documentary Free Solo? Alex Honnold climbing the Dawn Wall, El Cap, whatever one of these mountains is in Yellowstone, and he climbs it bare hand. It's a phenomenal documentary. It's on Amazon Prime. I'm obsessed with these guys. I must have watched that documentary about 20 times. It's incredible. Bare hand climbing this flipping giant wall that's part of a mountain. No ropes, nothing like that. Now, you could look at that and go, Joe, what? I want to take up bouldering. I want to do something like that, something life-changing like that. And your first few ascents, you're probably going to fall off once you've got a meter up. And then you'll get a little bit better, and then you'll get slightly higher and slightly higher and slightly higher. But what I watched Alex Honnold on TEDx, where he did like a behind-the-scenes talk. And this climb up the mountain was 10 years in the planning. 10 years of going up and down that rock with ropes, memorizing over 1,000 different hand and foot positions the entire route up that he was going to go. He didn't wake up one day and go, I'm going to climb a fucking wall and I'm going to do it bare hand. He did everything necessary to give himself the greatest chance of doing it. So, yes, you could say he was disciplined. You could say he was motivated. He had an outcome, but he was so focused on the process and how it linked to that outcome that the discipline and the motivation just kind of took care of itself, really. So if you wake up and you've had a shit week and diet was a little bit off, doesn't mean game's over at all. This is just 1 year of your ascent up the wall. You've got to do another year or another week.
100%. I think there's so many things. There's so many things to sort of like unpack in this, right? I think the starting off there is like the only way you fail at weight loss is you either quit. You quit or you die trying.
Yeah.
Right? Like the only two ways you fail, right? You die before you finish it, or you quit. So as long as you keep going, you haven't failed because you just found your other route, you find your other handhold. I think another thing you mentioned there was goals. Yeah. I think having a deadline is super important. And I think this is why people are often more adherent to fat loss plans than they are motivated for muscle building plans, because you have this long sort of like endless sort of goal now where you had 10 or 12 weeks where you can see yourself be better. I always think of like dieting is almost like putting money into a savings account. You see your bank balance go up every single month and you go, oh, I'm really rich. But building muscle is like putting money into an index fund. You actually feel poorer because money's going out of your account and into this index fund you can't see, like your body fat going up and you're getting fluffier and fluffier, right? But if you wait long enough, putting money into this index fund, there's a compounding interest effect that eventually in 5 years when you take that money out, it's like, oh my God, like when you diet again, and you're like, oh, I can see the hard work now. So you've got to shift that thing. You've got to shift onto the process of building tissue rather than the process of the scale now. And I think we are looking at, like, at HIT PT now, we're looking at rethinking how we do our assessments. We do this, the caliper every 2 weeks. And what do coaches do? They rush it in the first 10 minutes because you want to get on the gym floor. And we're thinking, well, can we, on day one, let's say, Rob, you sign up for 36 sessions with me. Maybe I'll pay for a 40 session. Maybe you pay for a 40 session package. And that's 36 sessions plus 4 assessment sessions that are going to be done at monthly intervals. We book them in on day one. So there's mini deadlines every month. And in those monthlies, we can have a look and go, what went well? What did you struggle with? Let's look at your calipers. Let's look at your photos. Let's plan what you want to work on this month. Let's work on this. Let's look at some strength tests. Like having like a progress report to create these little bit of boundaries and just create the sort of like, how do we make progress in this? And I think that's a really like important thing with any sort of goal. And I think another thing that you kind of mentioned there with the 10-year ascent is embracing being a bit shit. I think sometimes people get inspired by something, right? I see at the moment a lot of people inspired by the show Physical 100, which, by the way, have you watched that?
I haven't yet.
We're going to end the show talking about this in a second, right? Because Jesus Christ, this is you will laugh at this stuff, but you're not going to be any of these guys overnight, and whatever you decide to do, you're going to be a bit shit. And I think people underestimate the skill component with weight training and the skill component with dieting. Like, people understand if they want to learn Spanish, they'd be a bit rubbish at it. If people are going to play tennis, they're going to be rubbish. But with weight training, people assume they get disheartened. They don't pick up macronutrients or don't understand the calories right away. I'm like, that's a skill. Like, people get frustrated when they don't immediately get a deadlift. I'm like, well, that's a lot of stuff you need to control. Like, it's okay. Like, people doing this are taking years. My squat's still rubbish. I've been doing this for like 15 years worth of training. So, like, I think embracing being shit, as soon as you realize like you don't have to have it all figured out and you don't have to be perfect, it takes a lot of pressure off yourself. And then you can start to enjoy it. And I think a lot of people hold off enjoyment because they think, I don't like the fact that I've not got a perfect squat. Simplify it. Get on a machine squat. But go on a goblet squat. Work up. Take your time. It's not a race. And if your goal is to diet to low body fats, it doesn't really matter that much what you do in the gym. So you can afford to take your time as long as you're working hard.
Yeah.
No,
don't tell people that. That'll be half the industry on Instagram not being able to do any things anymore. But
yeah,
100% right. And it's all skill building, and it's worthwhile skill building because it's going to serve you later down the line in ways you can't even imagine, right? It's like, I watched my old man struggle to stand up. That's not right. That's not living, right? If he'd done the things necessary to get him to the point where he's more mobile and agile and strong now, it would be a high quality of life. But he hasn't. So, okay. The issue we've then got is, as you need to upskill, you have to be educated. It doesn't happen accidentally, and all the knowledge is already out there, right? But like you say, take the macros, for example. If I over-educate you on that, I might bore you to death, and then you're not motivated to continue with that process. But on the opposite side of the spectrum, if I just briefly gloss over it, you might not understand why it's important. You're probably not going to be motivated to utilize it. And this is the issue I have with the high protein hack crowd that go to Aldi and Lidl and show you what protein puddings to fucking buy. No one's really enjoying that. Come on. No one's actually enjoying sitting down and eating those things when you've got phenomenal steaks and eggs and decent chickens and salmon and stuff like that. No one's enjoying eating a fucking 20-gram protein yogurt. Come on, man. But the issue is, because you think it's good content and it's relevant for people out there, you're going to the shop and pretending that that's what you're eating and enjoying. When really you could show someone how to cook a proper, human, non-processed, protein-based meal that they're going to enjoy, and you can then talk about macronutrients at the same time. But we're not. We're just going. When you go to the shop and say, these are my top five protein hacks, you're essentially telling your potential clients to go to the shop and buy those exact things, which is almost the same as the meal plans that you don't agree with. You're telling them to go and buy that. And what happens if they don't enjoy that? They're going to sit there and go, Jesus, well, this is what they told me to buy and eat, and I'm not enjoying it. I don't want to do this anymore. And then you've lost them. And it could have been so different. So many different ways to educate people, and obviously one of the best is educating by doing rather than just telling, working alongside them, and that's what coaching is, helping them through stuff, not just going, do that, see ya. But there also has to be an element of that at the same time.
I think going back to
educated them enough.
Yeah, go on.
Cool.
No, I think they're going back to the skill.
I was just going to continue watching.
Yeah, I think going back to the skill component there as well. I think, and this is one for coaches. I think looking back at the times where I've lost motivation to train and what's got me back into it, I think coaches going down certainly down the mechanics wormhole. I remember. Do you ever miss the days where you were ignorant? And you just like, I just squat because I was told how to squat, and just bench press because I was told to bench press. I didn't think about it much more than that. I just came in and trained. There wasn't things I couldn't do. There wasn't restrictions. There wasn't mobility issues. There wasn't I didn't know enough to know if something didn't feel right. It just felt. And I feel people get lost, and I'm certainly to blame for this as well, but like get lost in this. And I remember when, and again, this is not Michael Gould or Tom Purvis' fault. It's the people that are 3 to 4 runs down the mechanics wormhole that go, Simon, don't do this. Your structure isn't the best suited for it. And if my only goal, like if my example was squats, right? I'm not built to squat. And I'm like, okay, if my only goal in the world was to build big quads, like I didn't want a family, I didn't want £1 million, I don't want a business, I don't want a partner. All I want in life is big quads. Then that's probably great advice. But training becomes pretty boring if you just restrict everything back to the very small pool of things that you can do. It's like me saying never eat a carb again. Eventually that becomes boring. And I think understanding, right, okay, some of these big lifts, you can say, do you need to do any of these big lifts? And of course you don't. But also, what does a squat and a deadlift and a bench press do? It's a skill that you can learn over many, many years that can stay mentally stimulating. It's something that you can load for a very, very long period of time. It's something you can brag about to your mates. How much do you bench? How much do you squat? And these things are often forgotten for the optimal crowd, or for longevity. And I think for a while, like for me, working around my limitations, I think is an important skill, and I need to know it to stop myself getting hurt and to maximize progress. But also I think, okay, what is my squat? What is my version of this? And how do I work around the limitations in that? It's a much better conversation than this is the list of stuff that you can't do. Because when you get to a point where every time you go into the gym, it's a showcase of what you can't do rather than what you can do, you've missed the point of training. Training is an expression of what our bodies can do. Do you know who the philosopher was that's saying like one of the biggest mistakes in life is like you never realizing what your body is capable of or something like this? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
But whatever
that quote so many times,
whatever that quote was, that's the thing. Training is supposed to be a showcase of what your body can do. Whether that's lift heavy, do a handstand, do the splits, touch your toes, whatever you excites you. But if now going to the gym, if you feel more, your body can do more, and you feel more comfortable in your skin on the sofa than at the gym, you've gone too far down the mechanics wormhole. And I've been
I think in terms of knowing if you've been educated how to train properly, which is not strictly for using one sort of modality. And this is where the optimal bros could really, really do their clients a disservice. If you went on holiday, most hotel gyms are shit. Of course they're shit. Because the hotel just wants you to sleep there. They're not looking for you to move in. If you're going on holiday, you want to get out and see stuff, things like that. But if you were that involved that you wanted to keep training because you didn't want to break the habit and things like that, and the hotel gym's shit, it's no excuse. There's still things you can do. There's always something you can do. What's an optimal bro going to do when he hasn't got daisy chains and an incline bench and the D handles and all these other things that TikTok's trying to teach people is essential to being big and strong, when none of these guys are particularly big or particularly strong. But let's say you go there and all they've got is a barbell and a bunch of 20s. Well, of course we can have some fun with that. What if you go there and they've only got kettlebells? Well, of course we can have some fun with that, depending on what you've been taught about what to do with kettlebells, or you just mimic certain dumbbell movements with them. Never discounting body weight. Never fucking discount body weight. But also recognizing what are you going to enjoy most. If you're not going to enjoy training in that dark, dank, potentially windowless little hotel gym, or it's just cardio equipment, what are you going to enjoy? Well, probably getting the fuck outside and actually seeing the place that you've flown over to visit, which is asking yourself questions, changing your thoughts, changing your mindset about what's actually important, align it with your values, and doing something that you're actually going to enjoy at the same time. But if realistically, if you go on holiday for a week and you don't train for that week, have you derailed your progress in the slightest? Not even close to any sort of major damage whatsoever. Maybe even to it. I don't know the full extent of how long a break you can take before it does actually really eat into your progress.
Depends.
It'll be, yeah.
Depends on what you how. Depends on the stimulus you were training beforehand. Depends on where you're at in life. So it depends on things. But it's a lot of absolutely exactly with that, right? Like I think I would lean myself still towards more of an optimal. If I had to pick a camp, I'm probably more in the optimal camp. But I deliberately seek out, and I think I do this in life anyway. I think I try to do this because I appreciate that I, like everyone else, I get caught up in echo chambers and algorithms and things like this in life. And we've obviously gone down some of those wormholes and got in trouble for them, me in particular. Hint, hint. But I do this with training. So like I went to a Hong Kong fitness summit on the weekend, and it had Carlos in Charles Poliquin's wow, man. He's still very Poliquin. So I take a lot of the like cardio is going to make you weak and fat, like sort of thing. I take all that sort of stuff with a huge knee GH level pinch of salt. And but I booked a consult with the guy on Monday because what are the Poliquin guys really good at? They're great at systemizing strength training. They're great at long-term progress. And while like he was a bit stumped when I told him that he was saying my ankles were rubbish, and then I showed him my ankle range of motion is actually pretty good, and he was like, "Oh my god, I need to work. What's the script?" Because he never looked at lever length before, really, right? That's not his thing. Everyone can squat past the grass, but and this is me not calling the guy out because the guy's a phenomenal strength coach. But if you look at where the mechanics crowd is, it's almost sometimes wrap people in cotton wool and go, well, we don't know what their structure is, so they can't go there. Let's work around it. And then we've got the Poliquin crowd. It's like everyone can squat past the grass. Everyone can touch the chest with the barbell with the bench press. And everyone can deadlift from the floor. And everyone can do chin-ups, right? The answer is in the middle, like in everything else. So I deliberately went and found, like, get pushed into ranges that I don't own for 1 rep max testing, which sounds stupid. But, like, reality, I know for a fact that having assessed by Michael Goulden that I have structural limitations in my spine. I know for a fact I have structural issues that may stop me getting really deep in a squat. But where I am, and this is where the optimal in terms of the Poliquin crowd is, there's a middle ground here where where's my maximum level of potential? Like where is it that I just give up and go, just not for me, I need to work around it. I don't want to admit defeat without being stupid, without being like, oh, I'm just going to try and stretch my way through bone, because obviously that's unrealistic. But I'm not sitting there and thinking, oh yeah, I'm just destined to be this type forever. So I think that sometimes people get defeatist. In the same way people get defeatist about the diet. Well, my dad had diabetes, so I'm going to have diabetes. That's not how that works. And no. I think we get caught up with that for training. The one more thing I want to talk
to language.
Go on, yeah.
Language you use,
The one thing I want to talk about in terms of discipline before I talk to you about Physical 100 and why you should absolutely watch it. Not necessarily because it's good, but because it's hilarious. But we were talking about discipline earlier on. I do think there's a take-home message of people are going, well, if discipline's a bit of a soundbite, what do I do? Is make your environment easier for discipline. If anyone hasn't gone back and watched the episode I did with Tobias of Tobias Lifestyle about habits, I urge you to go and do this. And he talked about a habit. He helped somebody unravel a bad habit of drinking a bottle of wine every night. And he asked her, what cue do you use to buy this wine? He goes, well, I get it sent to my house. Okay, cool. So how do you order that box delivered to your house of wine every month? Well, I get an email. Well, could you unsubscribe from the email? And all of a sudden that reminder wasn't there. They took away the cue. which took away the routine, which then took away that reward that she had for it. And if you want to build a new habit, how do you create a cue that reminds you? Because and then people go, well, I can set a phone reminder. And this is something that was great on this show that I didn't think about. Phone reminders are great, but what happens if you're not at home when that phone reminder goes off? What happens when I'm trying to track my food at 8:00 each night? What happens if you're out for dinner? You just break that habit. What cue do I use that I'm going to do regardless? Like putting your supplements next to your toothbrush. You're always going to do that at some point. It's not reliant on a time. So to create discipline, think, what is the cue? And what's the routine that's going to be linked to that cue? And then what is the reward that I have? I saw another podcast with Stephen Bartlett before he went all calories don't matter guy, talking about his dad quitting smoking. He put Atomic Habits, he left it in his dad's bathroom, and his dad picked it up and started reading it because like blokes always have like something to read on the bog. And he just basically said, well, he had this cue. He only smokes in the car. So what he did is he took out his pack of cigarettes and he put in lollipops. So now every time he had the new cue to pick something up, and over time he didn't smoke anymore. So for people that are sitting there, well, how do I become disciplined? This is how you become disciplined. You make it easier. You take away the cue for the bad habits and you add cues for the good ones. And over time, you will do more. You will get more wins than losses. But to finish off the show, I want to talk to you about this Physical 100. I'm 3 episodes in, and it's like a big fitness cinema. Everyone here is telling me to watch it. Have you heard about it?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
So there's 100 Korean people. Most of them, the best shape you'll ever see anyone in ever. Like these guys are unbelievable, right? Powerlifters, CrossFitters, MMA fighters, fitness influencers, dancers, firefighters, mountaineering people, like all sorts of physiques. And they essentially compete in these challenges to like see who's like the ultimate champion of physique, who's got the best body, essentially. And I say these guys are super inspiring. And some of them, there's a guy called, I can't remember the guy's name, but his nickname is Sexy Yama. He's a 48-year-old MMA fighter, right? And why he's got that nickname, and I can't remember his real name now. I'll send you his profile when we finish, and people who watch the show will know why. I haven't had this much of a man crush on a Korean bloke in my whole entire life. He wears shades inside. He's cool as fuck. He's like in fucking incredible shape, unbelievable, schooling these young'uns. But it's very Squid Game. Like it's literally like they've taken Squid Game and tried to apply it to a fitness challenge. Right. But what I urge you to do is to watch it with the dubbing. Because people do not speak like this. And the way I described it is it's like what I would expect the small talk to be at the start of an orgy. Because they're so complimentary. Like someone walks in and goes, hey, wow, he's got a good body. And then the response is silly straight. They're all complimentary. They goes, hey, you look really muscular. Like they're really complimentary of each other. And there's some of these that just come in, and I don't know if it's lost in translation with the dubbing or people in Korea speak like this. No offense to any Koreans listening to this. I know we have a couple of people. But people, like, one guy comes up and he goes, hey, you have really big muscles. And the guy responds, not at all, not at all. And then there's a baseball player walks in and he goes, that guy's really tall. And the guy goes, he's 203 centimeters. The same 203 centimeters we saw before. There's a military girl that comes in, and she comes in, she's in the Korean military, and she walks up to random people and goes, salute! And the first challenge, they're doing a dead hand competition over a pool, right? And they fell off, and it was like, every time they fall off, they all go, oh, shoot! And then some of these people are like, he goes, oh, I saw this person over there. He looked like he was struggling. Now I'll try my best. I'm like, were you not trying your best before? Like, seriously, it's a bit much in terms of it. Yeah. But it is very funny. It is, we'll have to, like the so bad it's good territory.
Korean and see exactly what is being said or not.
I find a Korean friend of mine and watch it. I know a few people. I'll see if I can watch it with them. I was like, is this what they're saying?
Yeah. I'd be interested to see if it was sent to Netflix and they never sent the subtitles. They went, it's just for you to figure out what we're saying. Just make it up. It's just fitness talk. So I went, okay. Oh, big muscles. Yeah, that's probably what they're saying, isn't it? That's what people say in gyms.
Awesome. Well, on that note, I'll let you get on with your day. Tell us about Fat Loss Fastlane, because this is a motivation one, so I'm assuming that's where this is going. How are things going with that? You had your last time we spoke about Fat Loss Fastlane, you had your challenge. Where are things at now?
So challenge is completed. I want to rejig things a little bit based on motivation. If I put you on a 7-day course, not everyone's going to be motivated to complete those 7 days, just from a time perspective. And if you slip behind because life gets in the way, you might not want to catch up. And so I don't want to make things more difficult than they need to be. I want to make things easier. So now I'm considering how can I condense that down into something with the same sort of community aspect and the most powerful bits taken out of that week that you can take action on right there and then. So I'm looking at it either being a very, very short challenge, or potentially I'm going to go down this old online masterclass route. One massive live call for an hour potentially. We will see. I'm looking at the different options either way. But the people who did the Kickstart, like, most went into the fast lane. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But again, I just want to make things easier for the people that life throws a bit more stuff their direction.
Just be careful of the masterclass route, right? And I'm not gonna call her out, but I think what she's doing is actually working for her. But like, obviously, there's this trend at the moment after Kayla Lee is in Jordan Shallow's ex-missus Kayla Lee Physio, and she's doing these business masterclass and training, female health masterclass. She's very good, but like, where they got this, a lot of her marketing is very her. It's like she is the face of this marketing. I'm empowered. I've managed this. I've achieved this. And now I see a lot of people now who do masterclasses where their marketing is all about them. Like, it's them on a photo shoot. It's like, and I don't want your Instagram to start becoming you with your arse out going, hey, look, 3 tips for motivation. You with an unbuttoned shirt going, if you're struggling to make 6 figures, try this.
Mate, it's going to happen at some point. It's going to...
Is it going to be the leopard print shirt again? That same leopard print shirt?
Same leopard print shirt. I've still got the orange mesh, the see-through orange mesh that I had for my Slip disco gig, which was a covers band, Slipknot playing disco songs, or the other way around, disco band playing
Slip disco.
I take nudes at the top of mountains. These are all photo opportunities to show as much flesh as I can with some sort of motivational business quote underneath it. I think that's what works.
So if anyone's listening to this to close out the show, if you want to see Rob show as much flesh as possible and join one of his masterclasses that you can find out through onlyfans.com/Rob McGeary Fast Loss Fat Lane, then, let's you go sign up now. But yeah, Fat Loss Fast Lane on Instagram, correct? At Rob Core for random conspiratorial shit. And if you want to follow me, at Kingsley Dutton, that's where most of the stuff is. And Simon Kingsley Dutton on YouTube. As I always say, when I go back to the UK in June, we're taking this up a notch. So be one of the early adopters, spread the word. And, man, I'll see you next week.
Enjoy.